Hello and welcome to part 13 of my Japanese for Beginners series. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to use verbs in short sentences, and you will learn a few new particles to go with these verbs. This lesson corresponds with pages 90 through 92 of the Genki Volume 1 textbook, but even if you don't have the textbook, this video will make perfect sense on its own.
では始めましょう。
So we already have learned a few particles in the series so far. We've learned about wa, which is as for X, it is Y, something like that. So you can say things like, the sky is blue, dogs are stupid, cats are cute. You can say stuff like that with wa. We've learned about particle no, which shows possession. So you could say my hair, or her hair, or your profession, or the dog's tail. And then we've also learned about particle mo, which means to or also. So you could say, I also am a teacher, or her hair also is pretty. And I've touched upon particle ga a couple times, and now I'm just going to go ahead and add ga to the arsenal. There are some subtle differences between wa and ga, and I will go into that in future lessons. But for now, basically just think of ga as it's the same thing as particle wa for the most part, for our purposes, for the time being. So add ga now to your particle arsenal. Use ga pretty much exactly the same way that you would use wa. You could say sora wa aoi, or you could say sora ga aoi. Pretty much the same thing, sky is blue. And we also covered ne and yo to put at the ends of your sentences, and we covered ka to put at the ends of your sentences to ask questions, and we've covered janai to put at the ends of your sentences to make it the opposite of what it is. So let's use these particles that we already know to use verbs for the very first time. Exhibit A, megami wa utau. This is a short sentence with a subject and a verb, and it is also the title to a song from the very popular 90s OVA anime series, Oh My Goddess. Check it out. Amazingly beautiful artwork, cute story. Anyway, megami means goddess. It is a noun and it means goddess. And if you look at the kanji, the me is the same kanji for onna, which is female, and then gami is the same kanji for god. So it's literally female god, female deity, so goddess. Utau is a verb, and it means to sing. That is our first verb, and it's rather apt because I love singing, and I do a lot of singing stuff on this channel. So, utau, your first verb of this entire series. So since we're using particle wa, which means as for, you can still think of this as x, y, y des formula. So as for X, as for goddesses, utau, they sing. So the sentence means goddesses sing, or the goddess sings, or a goddess sings. Again, if you're using ga versus wa, it becomes a little more clear if you're talking about like goddesses in general, or if you're talking about a specific goddess, but that's a later lesson. You could also use particle mo with this sentence. So replace wa with mo and you get megami mo utau. So this means goddesses also sing. So this might come in a phrase something like you'd say, ningen wa utau. As for humans, ningen, they sing. And then you could follow that up with megami mo utau. So goddesses also sing. So note that you cannot use the no particle with this exact formula. You couldn't say megami no utau, just isolated by itself. It's grammatically incorrect. So no. And now let's learn some new particles. So first, let's look at particle o. So you may remember this from your hiragana lesson. When you learn hiragana, at the very end of the alphabet, you have wa, wo, and then and you're probably wondering, well, what's this wo character? I never see it anywhere. And oftentimes in romaji, you'll see it written W-O, but it is not pronounced wo. It's not with a hard W. If there's a W at all, it's because there was a vowel right before it. And then your lips just kind of naturally form a soft W, but it is not whoa with a hard W, it's o. Just a very extremely soft W if you want to think of it that way, but it's just o, really, just the letter O. But that's particle wo. So you only use this hiragana character as a particle, which is handy because then it's not confusing. If you see it, you know it's a particle, unlike wa. So anyway, particle wo, used in the following way. Noun wo verb. So noun wo verb means you're doing a verb to the noun. or to verb the noun. So here are some more sample phrases using particle wo. 本を読みます. So 本 is a book, and 読みます is a verb which means to read. So that whole phrase 本を読みます means to read a book. Or to read books, because we don't distinguish plurals in the Japanese language. くつをはきます. Kutsu is shoes, hakimasu is a verb which means to put on, but specifically if you're putting things on your feet or your legs. So kutsu o hakimasu is to put on shoes. Neko o dakishimemasu means to hug a cat or to hug cats. Dakishimemasu is to hug, to embrace. すべての猫を抱きしめます means to hug all of the cats. So note now I'm extending neko, our noun of our sentence, into a compound すべての猫. That's technically a word, a particle no, and another word, but I'm combining it. Think of putting that whole thought in brackets, and it still follows that X wo verb, noun wo verb formula that we have there. So that means to hug every cat. Hug every cat. Because すべて means all or every. この動画を見ます. So 見ます is a verb, very important verb. It means to see. And then 動画 means video. この, if you remember from the kosoado lesson, it means this. So この動画 is this video. Again, put that thought in brackets, and that whole thought, this video, becomes a noun. を見ます, so see this video, to see, to watch this video. So note that I began each of these phrases with the word to, which is a particle, by the way. English language has particles. Anyway, to read, to see, to hug. I put the to in there just to show that it's not the imperative, it's not the commanding version of these verbs. Read a book, like I'm commanding somebody. That's a different conjugation of the verb. This is just a neutral to read a book, to hug a cat. It's just describing an action. So now let's look at particle de. So the formula for using de is location de verb. And that means to verb at the location. So here are some examples. 教室で勉強します. So 勉強します, very long verb. It means to study. 教室 is classroom. So classroom de study means to study in or at the classroom. レストランで食べます. So 食べます means to eat. レストラン means restaurant. So it means to eat at a restaurant. 映画館でイチャイチャします. So イチャイチャします is to flirt, to make out usually. And then 映画館 is movie theater. So make out at the movie theater. 図書館で読みます. So 読みます, we covered that earlier, is to read. 図書館 is library. So read at the library. To read at the library. 図書館で本を読みます. So notice now we're extending, we're adding some more words into the sentence, and we're combining two of the new particles we just learned. So isolate the 本を読みます part, which we had earlier, which is to read a book. So put that thought in brackets. To read a book, 図書館で, to read a book at the library. レストランで寿司を食べます. So again, we have sushi を食べます. Just think of that as one thought. To eat sushi, put that thought in brackets. レストランで, so to eat sushi at a restaurant. So with de, with particle de, you're already at this location doing the verb. So you wouldn't use de if you're not at that location yet. Exactly, you're talking about doing an action at the location. If you're doing an action to get to the location, that's a different particle, which we're going to cover right now. So, particle ni. there are other purposes of particle ni, like there are other ways that you can use it, but just for the purposes of this lesson, we're going to look at two ways of using particle ni. One way is what I was just talking about. It is showing that you're going to go, like your eventual goal. The goal toward which things move is kind of how one of the uses of ni is. And then the other is the event, and then the other is the time at which an event takes place. So here is the sentence, 学校に行きます. So 学校 is school, 行きます is a verb that means to go. So 学校に行きます means to go to school. So note, I'm not using で. I'm not saying 学校で行きます because you're going to the school. You're not at the school yet. It's like you're going towards this goal. You're going to go to school, but you're not there yet. The act of going is what is going to take you to school. So it's 学校に行きます, not 学校で行きます. 学校で行きます would mean like I'm already at school and then I'm going somewhere. With more clarification and more words that could make grammatical sense, but yeah. Usually if you're going or returning or coming, you're going to use particle ni. And I'm going to show you a couple more examples of that. So, お家に帰ります. 帰ります is a verb that means to return or to go back. And then お家 is your home. So お家に帰ります means to go home, to return home. 日本に旅立ちます. So 旅立ちます is a verb that means like to take flight, to depart, to go on a voyage. And then 日本 is Japan. So to depart for Japan, to depart on a journey for Japan. So the other way that you can use particle ni, at least for the purposes of this lesson, is basically for telling time at which an event is going to take place. So it could be like literally a time as in an o'clock. In this case, 11時に寝ます. So 寝ます is a verb that means to go to bed. It doesn't quite mean to sleep. It usually means to go to bed. And then 11時, if you remember from the numbers lesson, that means 11 o'clock. So this whole phrase, 11時に寝ます means to go to bed at 11 p.m. Here's another one. It doesn't have to be a number, o'clock time. It can be like a time period, or it can be a day of the week. In this case, 月曜日にアニメエクスポに行きます. So note, I sneaked in ni in two places in this sentence, and it's being used in its two different ways. That's why this is a beautiful sentence. So 月曜日 is Monday. 月曜日に, so on Monday, at Monday. That's that version of ni, showing in a time that an event is going to take place. And Anime Expo ni ikimasu. So isolate that Anime Expo ni ikimasu sentence, and that is to go to Anime Expo. So to go to Anime Expo on Monday. That's what that whole thought means. So lastly, we're going to look at particle e. And just like particle wa, you don't write particle e with a hiragana e, you write it with hiragana he, because that makes perfect sense and is not at all confusing. So particle e is actually pretty simple. It's basically the same as one of those versions of particle ni, the version of ni where you are like, it's showing a movement goal. So you could rewrite those sentences, those ni sentences with e. 学校へ行きます, go to school. お家へ帰ります, to return home. 日本へ旅立ちます, to travel, to journey to Japan. So before we review this lesson, I need to point out that I have another video actually that I made about a year ago that explains a lot of these particles and other particles. And it's really cute, and I put a lot of effort into it because I drew a bunch of pictures with it to go with it. And it's meant to be kind of a humorous, very fast-paced intro to the particles, but watch that video for sure to give you even more examples of how particles are used. And this is also the part of the video where I plug my Patreon. If you want to support this series, or if you want to get a little more out of it, if you want to get out worksheets or study guides and learn even more from this series, consider supporting at the Genki or the Juku tiers. Check out my Patreon, link is in the video description below if you're interested. And now on to the review. I will be saying each model sentence that I covered in this video, and I will leave a few seconds of space for you to practice saying the model sentence. And I'm going to be including timestamps both in the video description below and in the pinned comment at the top of the comment section. So it'll let you choose your own adventure. You can practice any one of these phrases as many times as you want over and over again. Listen to it as many times as you want over and over again, just to get the right practice. But don't skip practicing. Practicing saying things out loud is really important, and it's the step that most people skip when they're learning a language. 本を読みます。靴を履きます。猫を抱きしめます。すべての猫を抱きしめます。この動画を見ます。教室で勉強します。レストランで食べます。映画館でイチャイチャします。図書館で読みます。図書館で本を読みます。レストランで寿司を食べます。学校に行きます。お家に帰ります。日本に旅立ちます。11時に寝ます。月曜日にアニメエクスポに行きます。学校へ行きます。お家へ帰ります。日本へ旅立ちます。Thanks for watching. In the next lesson in this series, you're going to learn how to conjugate verbs a little bit. So the verbs we covered in this video are polite versions of the verbs. So you're going to learn the not polite version, the plain version. You're also going to learn the plain negative as well as the plain positive. And you're also going to learn the polite positive and the polite negative. So you'll know how to say to not eat something or to not watch a movie. Thank you to all my lovely patrons who support this series and all the other series on this channel. And if you want a little bit more of a challenge in your Japanese lessons, I have other playlists that you should check out. The links will come up in the end screen in a few seconds. And until the next lesson, mata ne!